Before we do that, just to let you know, my name's Chuck Katz. I have the honor of being Al's best man at his wedding. Woo! And when they told me I had to do a toast, I thought they said roast. So put your glasses down for just a second. I've been lucky enough to know Al since he moved to the Valley in 1986. And we've been friends for 22 years. A very long time. Before I came to Carbondale, I looked back at some old pictures from 1986, when we were very much younger, and I noticed my hair was a lot darker then. And actually, Al, you had hair. When I met Al, I was living in Carbondale. I lived here from 1978 to 2004, and during the time I lived here, I was a volunteer firefighter EMT. And one day we had to bring a patient into the hospital that had had a heart attack. And it was not going well for the patient. And we brought the patient into the emergency room, and unfortunately we were doing CPR and using a defibrillator. But there was a new doctor in the emergency room that had hair. And the new doctor came in, took right over, was working on the patient. As we stood across each other, he looked at me and he said, "So what happened here?" So I explained to him we picked this patient up in Carbondale. Seemed to be doing okay. But unfortunately, as we drove into Glenwood, we got to about McDonald's, and the patient went unconscious, and we had to start CPR. And this new doctor looked at me with a big smile, kind of a laugh, and said, "Well, what did he have, a Big Mac attack?" So I knew somebody with that kind of sense of humor could be my friend. And the better news is he did save the patient. The second time I saw Al, one of the nurses had a dinner party up at her house. If you remember, Ingrid and John Seidel. And Al, before dinner, was telling everybody that he was a vegetarian. Actually, he told everybody he was a vegetarian. I call it the ad nauseum vegetarian. We sat down for dinner, and Ingrid served up a dish. I'd already seen Al do about 2 helpings. And he finally said, "Boy, this is really good. What is this?" And there was kind of a silence in the room, and Ingrid finally said, "Well, Al, you're about to serve your 3rd course of elk stew." So much for being a vegetarian. Al and I have had a lot of adventures together in the last 22 years. We've been skiing, we've been biking in Moab, we've been hiking, but by far, the best adventure we ever had was when we learned to scuba dive together down in Cozumel, Mexico. Now, if you've never traveled with Al Saliman before, I'm sure most of you haven't, it's a real experience. And when we got to Mexico, we checked into our room, and the first thing Al said to me was, "I can't sleep with the air conditioner on." And I said, "Well, I'm glad I traveled to almost the equator with you to find out you can't sleep with the air conditioner on." And I explained to him, I have a method for sleeping with the air conditioner on. I call it the tequila method. He wasn't into the tequila method. Unfortunately, we had a ceiling fan in the room, so the first night we turned the fan on, and it worked great, till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And one of the blades in the fan broke, and made this horrible sound as it went around. We both jumped out of bed, and Al stood up to fix the ceiling fan. Couldn't fix it. So there we were in this stifling hot room. So he opened up the door to get some air, and we were right next to a bar with a band. So now I couldn't sleep. So the next day, we had when we went out to learn how to dive, we had the hotel fix the ceiling fan. So the second night we go in, we turn the fan on, it's great, till about 3 o'clock in the morning. When the ceiling fan broke again, and it was a little too much for Al to handle, he got on the phone and was screaming at the night clerk, "This is Dr. Saliman in room 300. As if this poor guy working at 3 o'clock in the morning at the hotel front desk really cared. And he said, "This damn ceiling fan has broken again. I can't open the door because there's a band next door, and I can't sleep without the air conditioning. So we slept again. I tried to teach him the tequila method. He still wouldn't do it. But we had a great time. We got our scuba certification, and on one of our first dives, it was kind of an interesting dive. After we descended, this big fish got right up behind Al's head and followed him the whole dive. This was a big grouper, and it stayed right behind him. Now, for those of you that don't know, a grouper is also known as a Jewfish. I thought it was a relative. Now, for those of you that don't scuba dive, I'll tell you very quickly, you have to learn hand signals when you're under the water because you obviously can't speak to each other. And one of those hand signals is this means, are you okay? And you always respond back to your buddy, I'm okay. But there's a second signal for that, so sometimes you can't see each other very well in the visibility. There's a second sign that's this, it says, are you okay? And you always tell your buddy, I'm okay. So during the dive, I look over, and Al's doing this. And I said, I'm okay. About a minute and a half later, we're diving, I look over, and he goes like this. And I went, I'm okay. Another couple minutes goes by, and I look over, he's still got his hand up here. And I'm like, I'm okay. This went on the entire dive. We surfaced, we got back on the boat, I took my mask off, I said, what is wrong with you? You don't have to keep asking if I'm okay. And he said, that damn fish kept biting me on the top of the head. Just very quickly, the last time we dove together, we went back to the equator, back to Carbondale, and this time we were in a 4th floor room, and the minute we walked in the door, guess what he said? I can't sleep with the air conditioning. So we happened to go out that night, and I bought a bottle of tequila. And I forced him to drink a little bit. We got back to the room, and with the tequila method, I went to sleep in about 3 seconds. It doesn't matter whether the air conditioner was on. And I got up in the morning, and I was surprised the air conditioner was still on. And I got out of bed, we were going to go diving, and I went over to the bathroom, and as I walked past the desk, our bottle of tequila was there, with about this much tequila. And I thought, I don't remember drinking that much. And I looked over, and now there, this hotel's an older hotel, the beds sit on the floor. I looked over, and now his knees are on the floor, but the top half of his body is spread out on the bed. I thought I killed him. So, being the good friend I am, first I checked his pulse. And he finally got up, got dressed, and he looked at me, and I said, is there something you want to talk about? Do you have a drinking problem? And all he said was that damn air conditioning. But he finally learned the tequila method. But